2 on Sportsnet Radio, the FAN590. Anthony Sotero in the house, in the greatest city of all this country, in the greatest country all over the world. And right now we're talking grassroots soccer. When I'm in the house, we talk grassroots sports of all kinds. And we're going to open up the phone lines at 416-870-0590, 1-888-666-0590, star 590 on your cell. I've got a table here full of people from all over the province. Let's start with Ron Smell, president of the Ontario Soccer Association. Welcome. Dario Gasparotto of Ajax Soccer Club, Sam Medeiros of Mississauga Soccer Club, and Lucille Abbat of Newmarket Soccer Club. Welcome to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
My pleasure to have you all here this evening. A couple weeks ago, we had a great response. We had academies on. We had Power Academy on, and we had WinStars Academy on. And they presented their case why we should put our little Johnny or little Susie in their academy. Well, tonight, why should we put our little Johnny or Susie in a club atmosphere? I'll start with you, Lucille. Is there enough quality coaches, honestly, in the club system that the academies rave and talk about and they promote in your club?
Well, I can attest to the Newmarket Soccer Club. It's been about 6 years now. We've made great investments in our grassroots coaches. You have to realize, too, Anthony, all these coaches come from one pool, which normally come from your community clubs, right? So many of us have invested in top-level technical directors who have licenses, national licenses, European licenses, and are able to train our coaches, who then in turn can develop our players to become elite players.
But Lucille, a lot of these academies say that they're bringing coaches from South America here, from Europe here. They're paying top dollars because they're charging the kids top dollars as well.
They are.
What can you say to that?
Well, you know what? In the club system, we look at the ability to play over the ability to pay, because obviously there's an investment there. The economy is such where, for a fraction of the cost, you can get the same training right now in your community club. Not every club has followed that mandate, but for those of us who have taken the time to look at, the greater good of the player, we know that eventually we are training our players not only to represent their communities, but to represent their province and to represent their country.
Dario Gasparotto, I look at you and you won a national championship not too long ago. You've got a son that went over to AC Milan to train there, and hopefully with the right situation and the right papers in order, he will go there and have a successful career with AC Milan. Why should I bring my little son to have you coach him?
Well, I think, one of the big differences between club soccer and, there's good coaches everywhere, be it academies, and they run good sessions. I've seen them. But the one thing that the club can offer that I think the academy can't is that competition. You don't just train to train, and I think at a certain point, training's great, but you need to test yourself, right? So you train all week and then you test yourself for that weekly game. And I think competition is healthy. And it's one thing that in the current academy structure, it's very lacking. And I see it when the kids come to us from the academy. They're just not, they don't have that edge to them. They're not prepared for the pace and intensity of the game because, all they've done is really train to train. So I think there's a lot of good things that the academy has to offer, but at the same time, I prefer that competition to bring out the best in the kids.
That's a great point, Dario, because I've heard that from a lot of parents that have their kids in academies, guys, is that they don't have enough game action. They're not playing enough because there's just not enough of them around. Sam, you've been to both academies. You've now coaching in Mississauga. You're the technical director there. You're at the provincials as well. You've come back from Spain. Why should I register my son or daughter at a club over an academy?
Well, Anthony, I think we're all here for the same reason, is for the better of Canadian soccer. And I truly believe, the profit academies have a purpose, that is to make money. And that's their goal, and we have to respect that. At the club level, it's a non-profit organization. As Lucille said, we've got professional staff at the club levels. We have, the issues with club is, our players are leaving to go to private academies. That's the issue. What's the solution? The solution is start within your own club and academy. So there goes the issue. These players will not go to private academies. You cannot say that they're doing anything wrong because their business is the business to make money.
Yeah, Sam, I got to take issue with that, and Ron, I'm going to bring you in on that because I know that there's a lot of clubs in Ontario that are making a pretty penny, and they're well established, and they've got some good money in their bank account. True or not, Ron?
That's true, Anthony. The clubs are now more sophisticated. They're going to more sponsorships. They are hiring professional coaches. They're hiring professional technical directors. And the club system, which is the foundation of, the soccer in the province and in Canada, has moved up a level. And so there's a tremendous offering there, a tremendous choice that everyone can make with respect to training and playing soccer. So, yes, clubs have become more sophisticated and are moving forward.
Phone lines are open at 416-870-0590, 1-888-666-0590, star 590 on your cell. If you have a question for any of these people in here talking grassroots soccer, please don't hesitate. Give them a call and we'll address your concern or comment any way we can. Lucille, the academies always say that we can get kids scholarships anywhere in North America, and they tout that as one of their biggest assets. They also say that they've got a lot of ins in Europe with clubs, and they help out their program by promoting this. I don't see this enough from the clubs in Ontario promoting. And I know for a fact that a lot of kids from clubs get scholarships, get tryouts, as we said, Mr. Gasparotto with his son in AC Milan. We're not promoting that enough in the club system. But the academies, I got to give it to them. They're doing that job right.
I agree with that. And I know even in my club, the Newmarket Soccer Club, our U17 OYSL girls, almost every single one of them have scholarship opportunities right now with Division I schools. We don't advertise that enough, and I agree with you. I think the not-for-profit has always taken that back step and not self-promoted that. Our mandate is basically to develop our players at all levels, starting from U4. And, you get that in the club system where some of those recreational players don't want all that attention on the elite player. Right now, we're trying to give them a full service experience in our club. But, I'm challenged with that, though, Anthony. I've had my children in an academy system because the Newmarket Soccer Club did not have a development program. So I ended up, actually, that's how I got to know Sam. I went to Unionville, brought my older son there. They both had experience in the academy system. With that mandate, I brought that to Newmarket. We hired a professional technical director. We have professional technical staff. And I will tell you, many of my club coaches have gone on to the academies. So there is a purpose for us at the grassroots level.
So you stepped up to the plate. You've done what you needed to do as a club. Dario, I watched your team win that national championship, stacked with a lot of great young talent. The academies always say we give more practice time to the players because they're paying a big dollar and they're practicing 4 or 5 times a week. The clubs, let's be honest, you're a volunteer, and a lot of clubs have volunteer coaches. They can't come out 4 or 5 times a week. They're working like I'm working, like you're working. The academies, this is their life. This is their business.
Yeah, I think I'll challenge that because we are out 4 or 5 times a week. And I think as a club coach, you're so much more invested in the kids. You're not only their coach, you're their financial advisor, you're their counselor, you're their teacher. You have a vested interest in these kids. Whereas, I'll go back to what Sam was saying earlier. At the bottom of it, the academies are there to make money. As long as you're writing a check to the academy, you're good enough to play on the academy. And I mean, unfortunately, the standard of play, like they have a lot of good kids, don't get me wrong, but I have just as many good kids. The other club next door has just as many good kids. They do not have a monopoly on good soccer players. And in fact, I'll challenge that when their mandate is to make money, the coach will tell you whatever you want to hear in order that you write the next check. I mean, that's my feeling.
Let's go to Jason from Toronto. Jason, welcome to Sports the Rear of the FAN590. You have a comment?
Yeah, first, I'll also say hi to Sam. Hey, Sam, it's Jason D. Thomas. How are you?
Hey, Jason, how are you?
I'm very good. Okay, guys, I'm on my way home back from my practice right now. I just caught the show. Just a quick comment, or maybe it might be a little bit long if you let me. Not all academies, in my opinion, are out for profit. And I know firsthand that there are academies that are for the kids. And the prices that they do charge, some of them are reasonable, and all it is to get the kids the exposure that's necessary. Some of these academies, you're right, they don't have leagues to play in, so training's training, but competition is something else. But if you want to go with the Dallas Cup, to USA Cup, to get the exposure, it does cost some sort of, there's not a profit to be made, but there is fees. And a lot of these guys are pouring, and I know for a fact, hundreds of thousands of dollars into these academies, but there's no support from the OSA, CSA. And I know a lot of my friends are playing in Europe. They had to go on their own on their own buck. When they're playing in the provincial program, there's no exposure back then. Now things could have changed, but a lot of times clubs just don't seem to cut it. And for us, our kids, when Sam was my coach, we would travel all over the States, and the kids' parents had to pay, and every single 18-year-old person on my team had at least 30 scholarships from a D1 school offered.
Jason, I appreciate your call. We're going to cut you short because we're going to get to a break soon. But those are great points that Jason made, Sam. Very quickly respond to Jason, and then we're going to take a break.
I think Jason has got a lot of good points in there. I mean, every organization has a purpose to it. What Lucille said, and it's happening in Newmarket and Ajax, is that they're supplying the service of the professional staff and the professional environment. And I have to challenge that while the clubs don't expose the players. Yes, they do. They do expose the players. They take them. In Mississauga Soccer Club, we've gone to Italy. We're making plans to go to Portugal. They've gone overseas to the States. So I fail to see where the exposure is not there. The exposure is there, and the professional staff is absolutely there.
But Sam, you know what they're not doing? And Ron, very quickly respond to this. They're not promoting the clubs enough, what the academies are promoting. And this is where the clubs, and at the head office there, this is where they need to help out the clubs to promote a Gasparotto, to promote a lot of great women players all over this province, to put the spotlight on them and some of the great things they've done. Joey Lombardi, Sam Medeiros just came back from Spain. These girls had a blast, but they learned and they were educated in the game of soccer in Europe.
I agree, Anthony. I mean, we've got to do more to market and promote our athletes across Canada in this province. And certainly, when I look at the club system is growing. And not only is it growing, from a size perspective, but it's also growing from a skill set perspective. And, moving forward, the OSA needs to play a better part, or bigger part, shall I say, in this process. I agree with Sam, the issue of, we've got to somehow find a way to cut back in these costs, to keep costs at a low rate, to allow the athletes to develop. More importantly, to allow those who can't afford to pay to play. So from a governance perspective, certainly from the provincial perspective, I think we've got to do a lot more in the area of marketing and promoting our clubs. The clubs are the foundation. All the clubs that we have here tonight, 84% of their players are recreational players. We have to keep focused on that. It's a huge community development. There's education, there's teaching, there's health and wellness, there's growth for the athlete and for the child that's playing there. So a lot of work for us to do.
Let's be honest here. Ontario is the engine of this country, and I'll say it proudly that Ontario is the engine of this country when it comes to players, women and men. We need to speak loud and clear to the CSA and all over this country to show the great product we have, whether it's the boys or the girls. And there is a lot of good coaches in the club systems that are not recognized properly and need to be more recognized and put on that spotlight like the academies do. And this is what we need more of. Coming back after the break, the phone lines are still open at 416-870-0590, 1-888-666-0590, star 590 on your cell. Coming back on Sports Number, the Fan 590. 11:22 on Sportsnet Radio, the Fan 590. And let's hope one day in this province or in this great country of ours, we can have a Cristiano Ronaldo. It is possible because this country is the greatest. This province is the greatest. We are a melting pot of so many great cultures. Italian, German, Spanish, Asian, African, you name it. This is the greatest country in the world. But again, the CSA needs to step up to the plate and get a men's team to the World Cup. And that's what we need, is a men's team to the World Cup to celebrate them getting there. The women are on their way, and we wish them all the best of luck. But right now, we're discussing grassroots soccer at the youth level. We've got Ajax Soccer Club with Dario Gasparotto. We've got Mississauga Falcons Soccer Club with Sam Medeiros, Lucille Abate from Newmarket Soccer Club, and the president of the OSA, Ron Smale. The phone lines are open. They're lighting up here. We've got a few lines open, 416-870-0590, 1-888-666-0590, and star 590 on your cell. Let's get right back to the callers. And Mark from Oakville, welcome to Sportsnet Radio, the Fan 590.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead. You got a comment or a question, Mark?
I got a comment. You know what? If it wasn't for the club teams, it opened my eyes to actually going to the academies. And because I was a little disappointed in the way the club teams operate. And I found a great improvement with the kids that I put in the academy program. Both my sons, and I get the response from the other parents too. I just at the grassroots for the club teams, it seems like you go 2 steps forward with the academy, and when they play with, because I actually have them in both, it seems like they go a step backwards. And I'm not saying I think it has to do with the coaches, because like you said, there are a lot of volunteer coaches out there, and the kids don't get to learn the game. They kind of lose track of the game.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point, Mark. We appreciate you calling in, and Lucille, address Mark's concerns about that.
Well, Mark, to be honest with you, they all started off as volunteer coaches. Many coaches start off at the U4 level. They want to train their kids. They get into it for the love of their child, to teach them, to develop. Then they work their way up through the club system. You know, it all depends on the coach too. Some are better trainers than others. It all depends on the club. It all depends on your technical staff. If that volunteer coach is willing to invest the time, many of us at the club system, we pay for that additional training. We pay for as many licenses as they want to get.
You know what I've seen lately, Dario and Sam, and you can talk about this, what I've really enjoyed in the last number of years, a lot of ex-players are getting involved at the club level, and they're giving back their passion, their love for the game, and they're teaching it. They're teaching without being paid anything. I love that, Dario.
Yeah, no, I mean, as a kid, growing up as a kid, you know, that's all we had as coaches, you know, the Hector Marinados,
that
you know,
brings
just
good memories.
exquisite coaches, right? And you learn a lot from them, and now as coaches, you look back and you try to bring forward what they had taught you as a player. So, you know, Sam?
I mean, that's a great question from the caller, but I have to disagree with that. Is that I have worked in the private academies for profit, and I've been with the clubs for a long time. With the club, I feel there's if not better, but they're as certified as the coaches in the private academies. So with the academies, what they do very well is that they promote that maybe 1 or 2 coaches that they have that's fully licensed, qualified, and certified in the academy, and let everybody else work off them. In the club, there's a lot more qualified and certified than the academies right now.
Sam, what some of the bigger clubs are doing now that I've noticed that the academies have been doing for the longest time, and Dario, you can talk about this, and Lucille as well, is the academies many times when they've played games, Sam, in the States, here in Canada, whatever the situation is, they videotape the game, they bring someone to scout, they analyze it, they break it down. I've now noticed, finally, after the longest time, some of the bigger clubs have finally caved in and started spending the money where they should spend it, like these academies are. Dario?
Yeah, I mean, I can only talk for the Ajax Soccer Club, but we in the summer have a weekly game on local Rogers TV, which is a fantastic way to promote the club and the players. Yes, you know, the academies are very good at marketing their product. Something that I think as clubs we can do a better job of.
Sam?
Absolutely, I think marketing is a great tool that they do over the club work, and that is something that the club has to pick up their sort of work ethic.
Ron, something that the clubs have that the academies don't have that I really like, to be honest, is a child can say, I'm playing for the provincial team. I'm representing my province where I was born and raised. This is fantastic. Talk about that the academies can't say.
Well, I've had the opportunity, Anthony, to be with some of the provincial players, and you see it when they come in and they are part of the team. They've trained, they've worked hard, and of course they trained and worked hard at the club level. They were scouted at the club level, and when then they were picked and chosen for the club level, you see that pride on them, and I think that the club process really ties you back to your community. It's a cradle to grave type of operation versus you just take an athlete, sort of insert them into a high level, elite level training opportunity or process, and then they're maybe airlifted in and out. Whereas in a club environment, you're investing in your community. You're teaching youth. This is where you live. This is where you play. Possibly this is where you're going to work. And that tying in and that bonding, I think, is what gives strong communities. I mean, living in the Durham region area, I see it all the time when I see games and I visit games. I see the pride amongst not only the kids, but the parents. And I mean, the parents are a huge component in this well. A lot of parents just aren't aware, I believe, of what's going on. And I think our responsibility at the provincial level is to provide more promotion, more marketing, and more education. The club system is becoming and has become more sophisticated than it ever is or ever was. And as such, we need to do something from the provincial level to support that. You know, all the guests that you have here this evening have talked about coaching. Coaching is the key to training and making good athletes or producing good athletes. And I believe what we need to do at the OSA is we need to download or push down that opportunity for training. History has shown that we at the OSA, we've sort of been the mother entity that's had to do it all. We don't need to do it all now. We need to set standards. We need to set expectations and allow the club system to develop and flourish even more.
But as I've always said to you, Ron, you can talk the talk, but you've got to do the walk, and that's what it comes down to with the academies. They're doing the talk and they're doing the walk, and then the clubs have to step up to the plate. Let's get back to the callers. The phone lines are open at 416-870-0590, 1-888-666-0590, star 590 on your cell. Vic from Toronto, welcome to Sports Radio, the Fan 590. Your question or thoughts?
Hello, hi. I wanted to talk about the younger kids, because I coach a group of U8 boys, and it's at a club, and I took them down to an academy event, and at the academy they were playing a 4v4 without goalkeepers, and at the club system we're playing 7v7. So I saw like a lot of difference in how their kids responded to that. In the 7v7, it's very much a power game where the bigger kids, the kids with a bit more speed, the kids who are more physically mature, have an advantage. Where we're doing with the 4v4, it was much more about the skill, and I felt that there was much more advantage to playing the 4v4. And usually in my practices, we only play 4v4 or 2v2. But then we have to play 7v7 in the club system when we play in the league. So my question is that what is the OSA and the clubs doing to look at how we can change the system or the
Appreciate
structure?
that. Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that, Vic. Solid points. Lucille, we'll start with you very quickly because we got to take a break and we want to get everyone's thoughts on that. Callers' points.
Well, Vic, the CSA has put out our long-term player development model. It's Wellness to World Cup. And I know the OSA is taking a firm stand as we move forward to implement long-term player development. It's much more difficult at the grassroots level because you have to get everyone to buy into it. And I know we have aggressive programming coming into play that'll address those issues.
Dario?
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's always small-sided games and practices. So my suggestion is just to stress that 4v4, 3v3, 2v2 in your practice sessions. You know, give the kids as much touches as possible in the time that you have them, and then you'll see that moving to a 7v7 is not that big of an adjustment.
Sam?
Little and often, Anthony. That's what we're doing at the clubs. Instead of mass producing these big games, we're producing the smaller games. But again, it's just little and often.
Dario, before we go to break, let's talk about your son. Where is he at right now? What's the situation with him? Because a lot of people have been calling me, tweeting me, asking me, what's happening with Dario's boy? Luca Gasparotto, a proud product of Ontario. And before we get into that, also give a little tip to mom and dad. What did you do with this boy on the days you weren't training or at games? What were you helping him with?
Well, we're still at the park, even with my younger son. I mean, we always have a ball in the car, and it's always at his feet. I mean, he came up to the club program, regional, district, provincial, and now he's off to Mexico the day after tomorrow with the Canadian national team. Had a wonderful experience last year with AC Milan. Still trying to work through the paperwork. Have a lot of people coming forward looking to help, which is fantastic. May have caught a break the other day, and hopefully I'll get back to you with some good news shortly.
I'd love to hear that. And Ron, before we break, that's something that I think the OSA needs to step up to the plate and help out with. Kids like Luca Gasparotto, that he has a dream, a passion to go to AC Milan. But a lot of red tape, Dario's been telling me, that he has to cut through. This is where the Ontario Soccer Association should go to bat for Dario. Help him out in any situation he can, because he is an Ontario provincial player and a great person.
We should have the camera on these types of youth. These types of youth who have dedicated their lives to training each and every day, 7 days a week, and modeling themselves after the great athletes who've played the game of soccer. So I agree with you, Anthony. We need to do more. We need to find the dollars and the methods to do that. And more importantly, we all need to get together and build that strong team. We continue to be somewhat siloed. Maybe we're too siloed in the way we communicate, market, and promote. And so my comment is out there is let's all start working together to achieve what you're absolutely right in saying about marketing our youth today.
So, in other words, let's sit down and have a cup of coffee. It could be whatever type of coffee it is. It could be from Timmy's, from Starbucks, Second Cup. I could go on and on. We all might have differences, but we should all sit down for the betterment of the athlete and the player. Phone lines are still open at 416-870-0590, 1-888-666-0590, star 590 on your cell. Coming back after the break, we're going to talk about the volunteers. We need to talk about mom and dad. A lot of days, a lot of time spent in that car, traveling to tournaments, cold coffee. We always talk about the hockey parents, the basketball, the baseball parents. All these great parents in different sports give up their time, overtime at work, the love and passion they do for these kids of theirs. But you know what? The same goes for the coaches in Ontario. They're giving up a ton of money out of their own pocket to pay for gas, to help out the kids that maybe can't pay for it. This is great stuff. We need to talk about this coming back on Sports and Radio, the Fan 590. 11:42 on Sportsnet Radio, the Fan 590. And that was Dan Dunleavy calling a goal, a rare goal by TFC. None last night. Bex hit a crossbar, hit a cross. They hit a goal post, and my wife kept on flashing that camera time and time again. And now I got nothing left on the camera to shoot any more pictures. But anyway, I'm glad you had a good time, dear. I got a grassroots soccer talk happening here this evening. Ron Smale, OSA President, Dario Gasparato, Ajax Soccer Club, Sam Medeiros of the Mississauga Soccer Club, and Lucila Bat of Newmarket Soccer Club. Guys, we left off with a lot of points here from the last caller, but I want to get to some of these callers before we finish off the segment here. And then there's a couple issues that I want to touch upon as well. So we're going to go to rapid fashion here. Let's go to Jackie from North York. Jackie, welcome to Sports and Radio, the Fan 590. Your thoughts or opinion?
I just wanted to say, you were talking about the academies were talking about how good it is to import from Brazil or Europe. That if you're doing that, it just tells me that those coaches can't get a job in their own country. A license or a certificate is just a piece of paper. It does not make a person a coach. You want to talk about volunteers. Dario was a great volunteer coach before he got any of those papers saying he could coach. And that goes for all of our coaches, all of our volunteer coaches.
That's a great call, Jackie. I appreciate that. And you know what? We touched upon Mom and Dad, Dario. We touched upon Sam. A lot of these people, Lucille and Ron, that are giving up a ton of time and money out of their own pocket to give back to these clubs. And you know what? I'm not the biggest fan of putting a coach in there, a young, raw coach that hasn't learned at least the basics. I disagree with that. I think a young coach needs to learn a lot more than the basics to even start out at house league. They need to show the young boy, young girl that they know what they're doing by teaching them the right things, okay? And this is why I'm really happy to see, as I said before, a lot of the ex-players getting involved. Sam, you're an ex-player. And this is great to see that you're getting involved. Do we need more ex-players? And mom and dad are helping out the best way they can, given the knowledge that they have. But the ex-player is important to this.
Absolutely. I mean, they say that a picture paints 1,000 words. And it doesn't matter if you do it slowly, if you do it fast. But as an ex-player, you can have, as the young lady said on the phone, license do not make you a better coach. License make you just a smarter coach. But if you have that flavor, that touch, that sense of demonstrating to a young upcoming superstar of tomorrow, I think that is worth a lot more than the license. License just gives you the right to move up in the column of coaching. What
I've noticed, though, Sam and Dada, you can comment on this as well. At the academies, it's a more of a regiment. It's almost it's very robotic. It's very strict in nature. And in the clubs, I noticed that there is a little bit more relaxed. I noticed that in the academies and the clubs are almost even on this communication, which is very, very important. And I like that both academies and clubs have a strong communication tool.
Yeah, I think it all depends on the coach. I mean, there's some coaches that their style is different. It's a little looser. Some are more strict. So I think it very much comes down to the individual coach. I don't think you can brand the whole club, either, strict or, regimented. And I think a big aspect of coaching is communication. I mean, as a club coach, like I said, you've got to be communicating out to the parents, the siblings. Like it's so much more than coaching. It's that it's those elements that the certificate might not talk to. You know, it's the ability to balance the books. It's the ability to fundraise. There's just so much more involved. Like, I wish I could just go run the session and go home. Like, to me, that would be the dream coaching job.
And it doesn't happen, Dario. Let's be honest, Ron. I coached a long time ago, and your phone, even during the day at work, Sam and Lucille, would ring. Oh, what time is the game? Or what color uniform should I be wearing? And this is what, Dario, you're speaking about. Talk about that, Ron. It's something that involves, once you're in, but you got to be fully in, or else don't bother getting in. That's what I found out. It was consuming.
It's a commitment, it's an investment. And I wanted to go back just with what Sam was speaking before. Many of our clubs today run mentorship programs, Anthony, whereby the athletes who've come from the age of 4 to 18, gone to university, are now coming back into the club program. And I think this is a huge, huge issue for community development. It makes me proud to see that there's this sort of movement of people in and out of the system constantly, whether it's coaching, whether it's administration, whether it's baking cookies for that fundraising sale, so that that club or that team can move to a venue to showcase their athletes. A lot of good things happening there.
Lucille, a Newmarket, it's an exploding city. It's still growing. It's got a lot of great facilities, and you've talked to me so proudly about this new facility you have out there. Talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, we're very proud. It'll probably be one of the first of its kind. It's a project we've been working on for 5 years now. The Newmarket Soccer Club will be constructing an indoor facility. We have purchased a parcel of land in town, and our building permit application was just submitted last week. The structure itself will be 200 by 216, and we're very excited about this because we're not only going to own it, we'll be operating it.
But again, Lucille, a lot of time and effort, phone calls that had to be made to get this. Like Dario said, a ton of work. But in the end, I'm sure it's going to be all worth it, because when they see Lucille at the local coffee shop in Newmarket and that young girl comes up and says, thanks. Thank you for what you did. It's all worthwhile. Money cannot replace that feeling ever.
I hope, we trust that's going to happen. But, you know, Anthony, there's one thing I want to add to that. I was the parent on the sideline. I then, when my children started playing competitively, everyone knows I was a manager for 9 years. From there, I became a community level 3 coach. Sam was one of my instructors. And from there, being so involved, both my husband and I, coaching and managing our children's teams, we came to the board. We made the whole transition, all as a volunteer. My husband has been working on this project as the project manager for the past 5 years. It has consumed our lives. That's all we think about. That's all we talk about. So to have this structure up and running this fall, fingers crossed, will be the biggest accomplishment we've ever made.
Let's go to a caller. Alan from Manchester. Welcome, Alan, to Sports the Rear, the FAN590.
Yes, how are you?
Very good, Alan. You got a question?
Yeah, well, the comment you were talking about, you wanted to improve our youth soccer, having a professional men's team. I would tell you, one of the biggest challenges I find coming from a smaller club is that the great players playing in the L4 don't get looked. They don't get offered to play in a provincial thing. It's always the big clubs, the Oakville, the Whitby, all these big clubs. They never come in. See, we're like right now we're doing a showcase tournament on May 7th just to and all the proceeds going for scholarship, because we want our girls to be seen, because nobody is offering our girls or our boys their team, and I find also the boys, there's not as much interest in boys for showcase or stuff. I don't know why it is, but we need to get the boys more involved. I agree with you if we want to have a really, really strong national team.
Alan, solid points. I've said this, Dario and Sam, you can address this as well. If you're good, they will find you, whether you're in Tweed, Ontario, whether you're in Sault Ste. Marie, whether you're in Acton, wherever you are, they will find you. I know this for a fact from Europe, from Italy. They'll go everywhere, all over, to look at players. True or not, Sam?
Absolutely. I mean, doesn't matter where you are. If you have talent, this is for the caller. If you have talent, all you need to do is get your club head coach or technical director that's got his certifications and call us up at the OSA and say, hey, I've got a player. I would like a player from my club to come out and try for your program. If we have the time at the OSA to come out and evaluate and scout a player, they will. And at the same time, we have, for example, the OISL. They're out there, supposedly the top league in Ontario, but I think the only thing that they do for the clubs and supporting with the provincial program is collect money. And that's all they do, because that league should be run by the OSA, where the OSA can get that money and put it back into the players, pay the staff more, and then we can go out and spend more money and more time and finding these players, locating these players.
That's another whole show in itself.
So we're opening up a can of worms.
League reform.
We'll get that in another opportunity. Dario, before time is our worst enemy here, we have to talk again a little bit about your son, and hopefully you'll have some great news about your son. But I thought of you when I thought of this situation last week when I interviewed 3 of the girls from Sam's provincial team that went to Spain. 2 girls, one came from Sudbury, one from Ottawa, that continuously come every weekend. That is a 4 or 5 hour drive. God bless those parents, because I don't even know if I have it in. I complain when I got to go to Mississauga in the traffic during the day. What can you say about that?
Yeah, and you know what? It's not just those 3 girls. Like, I see it time and time again. I mean, I had a boy who lived in Campbellford and came in an hour and a half just to practice 4 times a week. I mean, so you see it continuously. And to the caller from Ancaster, totally agree with Sam. If there's quality out there, you will be found. I mean, it always rises to the top.
Ron, I want to say something about the OSA. A lot of times you see these coaching clinics all over North America and Europe where they bring top-notch coaches in there in a weekend for seminars, for trainings, and big money is paid to get into these clinics. The OSA does something that I think is marvelous, that's not enough exposed or promoted, that needs to be done more better. Pedro Jozak, Tosh Farrell, I can't remember the other fellow, he played in MLS, was a wonderful player, he played on the World Cup team, it just escapes my mind right now. But this is something that the OSA is doing great, and they don't charge any admission for it. You come in there, and you learn, you listen from some of the best in the world.
That's true, Anthony. Every fall we do run a coaches symposium, which is free. Usually we average 650 to 750 coaches. It's a great opportunity to network and communicate. We have our AGM that's coming up at the end of the month, Anthony, on 28th and 29th, and Tosh Farrell will be there. He's running a clinic in conjunction with Bobby Lennox from the YRSA, and so there's a great opportunity for people to drop by. And to our caller, that word that Dario mentioned before, communication is the key to get the word out about those showcase tournaments. So if there's a showcase tournament in Ancaster, we need to develop and provide a mechanism whereby everyone in the province knows about that showcase tournament. And we can do a lot more, Anthony, down the road from a communications perspective.
Lucille, 30 seconds. Tell us why we should register our child at Newmarket Soccer Club or any club in Ontario.
Because I feel that all not-for-profit soccer clubs, community-level clubs, will offer your children a full cycle, full-service experience.
Dario.
I just think that there's great value at the Ajax Soccer Club. You get a lot more than what you pay for.
Sam.
Very shortly put it, we're trying to create the future of tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a great point. Sam, you always smile, and that's what I love seeing. It sometimes at these academies, I say that with all honesty, and I see it from Carmen Asako. I see it from so many young, great Ontario coaches, Anthony Capitosta. These guys smile because they love what they're doing, and there's a lot of great coaches in the academies, too, that are smiling. And sometimes we take it too seriously. Smile, have fun, and these kids will take that, and they will enjoy. Ron. One of the best, the biggest tournaments in all this country is happening. The draw will be happening this weekend. Talk about that very quickly before we close it up. Very quickly.
Thank you, Anthony. The Ontario Cup draw will be this Sunday, 2 to 6 at the OSA Centre. Largest tournament in Canada, one of the most prestigious tournaments, so everybody's welcome to come out. It'll be held in the Canada Room, and we'll have some activities going on at the OSA Centre. As I mentioned before, the AGM is coming up at the end of the month. We have Tosh Farrell stopping by for a coach's clinic, plus lots of other symposiums.
You forget to mention one thing that starts with a T and ends with an E. Touchline.
Touchline, yes. OSA Touchline, okay, which again touches grassroots soccer, which is a big investment.
Very good. That is Ron Smell of the OSA, president of the OSA. Dario Gasparotto, thanks for joining us here from the Ajax Soccer Club. Good luck to your son. If there's anything that we can do here to help, let us know.
I'll let you know, yep.
Sam Medeiros, keep up the great work. Mississauga Falcons. Great clubs there. I know that the 98 boys won the Ontario Cup just this past season with Gino. Great work there. Lucille Bat, keep up the passion, keep up the work. Fantastic facility. Congratulations to you. Thanks
and
to
the board.
And the board. Great. Thanks to James Sherman of The Score for joining me early on this evening. Peter Curtis, Josh Hamilton of the GTHL, and Rob Wong and Kayla Harris. But most importantly, thank you, the listeners, for allowing me into your homes, into your radios, in the greatest city of all, Toronto, Canada, joining us here on Sports and Radio, the FAN590. Good night.